Welcome to the Musician-Centric Podcast. We are two freelance violists living and laughing our way through conversations that explore what it means to be a professional musician in today's world. I'm Steph.
And I'm Liz. And we're so glad you've joined us. Let's dive in. It feels good to be sitting here.
Oh, I know. I was like, how does this work?
I know.
Will my mic still work? You know how when you unplug something, it takes your computer a minute to realize what's
I had
up.
to re-log in to all of the things and remember, because friends, it's been a minute since we've done this.
We missed
we
it.
We really did. So we're wrapping up this season this way, right?
Yes. This is completely unplanned.
Update you.
By the way.
Yeah, nothing's planned at all.
Off the cuff.
Other than we had the opportunity to sit down and actually do this, which is saying a lot, actually.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with the last several weeks?
I mean, I guess I would say that we had every intention of producing a full season with a full 12 guests and all that. And, sometimes life gets in the way.
Sure does.
And you have to be flexible.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially to accommodate your friends. And, what life throws at you. You can't.
Yep.
Yeah. You can't predict.
I think it's kind of wild to think about, what was the date of our release with Miriam?
Oh, gosh.
It was like mid-April, right?
Yeah, it was at the end of April.
Well, we had, the thing is, we had plans for other guests. And then, as you said, and I really appreciate you kind of teeing it up that way, my friend. Sometimes unexpected things happen. And I just had no idea that I was kind of headed for this sort of crash. I don't think I've been really talking about some of the health struggles I've been having. I know we've talked a lot about our personal lives in various ways, but I had been struggling for a long time with just declining energy levels, strength. There were all sorts of things that really are kind of becoming even more apparent now, of course. But the long story short is that towards the end of April, I was starting to feel really, really, really bad. I've probably talked about my migraines before, but I was getting them every day, every other day.
Yeah.
And they were getting worse. And I will not go into all the details of all of the different avenues I was trying to get some answers. I was calling different doctors and started seeing a functional medicine doctor, which I do have to say, because that is what ended up getting me the answers I needed, was paying out of the insurance system to get them, which is another conversation, maybe a guest down the road.
Yeah.
But I landed in the emergency room at the beginning of May, and it took a lot. For those of you out there who consider themselves to physically kind of tough through things, I had to have a real conversation with myself to even take myself to the ER, because I just kept saying in my head, no, just go to bed, you'll be fine. But it turns out that I very likely would not have been fine if I had just gone to bed. So I went in and I had alarmingly low levels of sodium, which is the thing that was making me feel worse and worse acutely. But after that, I really called off all my work. I stopped working for close to 3 weeks. I actually subbed my students out for a couple weeks to one of my former students who was home from college, which was really great. Thank you, Billy. And I mean, it was like a no-brainer. I just had to focus on figuring out what was wrong and getting better. And I'm very happy and grateful and relieved to say that I have an official diagnosis. I have something called Addison's disease, which is an autoimmune disorder. And for those of you who don't know, because it is, as it turns out, it's quite rare. Okay, sidebar. Can we talk about this?
It's special, just like you. Liz would never have
a disease
be
one
that
of a
anybody
kind.
else has.
I gotta be the only one in the room. I mean, come on.
All right.
So that's been really interesting, because I have a lot of questions. I was very fortunate to have a really quick acting and responsive and actually very attentive endocrinologist who got me the final testing, and I tested positive for these antibodies, and then I started medication about 2 weeks ago. Basically, my adrenal glands cannot make stress hormones anymore. I can't make cortisol. And there may be other issues at play as well. But for now, that's the main thing we're treating. And, we all hear of cortisol as like the only thing we associate with it is stress and our stress response. But the thing is, cortisol does a lot in our bodies. It's responsible for a lot of functions. And all of those functions within my body were just starting to go. And it's amazing, absolutely amazing to me that within the 2 weeks that I've been on this medication, I feel so much more like myself.
Yeah.
And it's just like you just don't plan for these kinds of things. No. You just don't.
No.
And there are many questions for all of our friends out there in the autoimmune world. Last year we had a great conversation with
Alice Ping.
And there are a lot of whys, that you just can't answer, quite frankly. Like, why would your body decide that this was the way it needed to defend itself? Ultimately shutting down a function that you need to survive. But I'm very grateful to have an answer and a reason. Yeah. I was on a very dedicated search for that for quite some time. Boy, it's also really interesting how we gaslight ourselves, though, because you and I have talked about this, haven't we?
What I bring up next is, women so often get dismissed in the medical environment, and you think it's something that you're making up in your head. I think we've all been there. You go to a doctor and you're like, I'm having this issue. And they're like, oh, well, that's just this. It'll go away. Like, no, you don't understand the way that I live my life. And I know when something's wrong.
Yep.
And just the validation of having some answers and the realization that it was not all in your head.
Yeah.
And why do we have to search so hard for someone to believe us?
It's such a good question. And it's really interesting because, in my own experience, the first time I ever flagged with a troubling number was over a year ago. I've probably had this issue for years, many years. And it got exacerbated with the immense amount of stress I was under personally the last year and a half. So that's probably why it slid so fast. But it's like, by the time I could get a diagnosis, and I've told you this too, that's one of the more stark things to see is just test results come back and everything is flagging. Nothing's responding normally. And you're like, well, I mean, on the one hand, it's good to have evidence. That
explains a lot. See? Look,
my body's literally falling apart. Fix me.
Oh my gosh.
On the other hand, I really wish it didn't have to take those kinds of drastic measures to get there. And even just the constant advocating. I've had conversations with friends in these last several weeks who've talked with me about their own experiences where it from the time I was in the ER until I was diagnosed, it was several weeks. Who knows what could have happened in those weeks where I wasn't getting treatment and I needed it. And you just can't, I don't really focus on that because all I can think about now is how great I feel. I mean, like Stephanie knows, I was saying to her yesterday, like I'm enjoying eating food. I am sleeping normally. I didn't realize, and to back to your gaslighting point, I just told myself that it was one specific thing that was in my head and was created by, the emotional and mental load I was carrying. And it had nothing to do with physical health. And that my lack of appetite or all of this, I just brushed it to the side and just didn't think about it. And meanwhile, they were all warning signs and I've had them for a long time. I can't believe when I think back, like everybody asks me the last time I felt the way I was feeling now. And I'm like, it's been years since I felt the way I feel at this moment, which just goes to show that, our bodies are intricate things and there's a lot happening in there. If something's off, don't ignore it. Don't ignore it. It's not worth it. I can say with certainty.
There is something scary too, though, about delving deeper. I think one of the reasons why we tell ourselves these stories that it's nothing serious is that the alternative is to really dig into it and figure it out, and what might you find.
Right.
And I think that's what makes a lot of people hesitant to like go to the doctor. But really, you know the way that you should be feeling. Hopefully you felt that once in your life. And anything else that you're feeling that's less than that is something that requires, you should kind of dig into a little bit.
Totally.
But it's easy to put it off. It's easy to convince yourself it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and it's funny because I would say I definitely, I don't even know that I could say I was putting anything off. I was searching for answers. I just didn't know where the answers were, and I didn't have a response from any medical professional that there was a sense of urgency behind what was going on until I met with a functional health doctor. And that was like the most amazing thing. I really give a shout out to the medical professionals who are bravely trying this model out where they are going outside of the insurance system. They are MDs. Like, I worked with an MD. She knows what she's medically trained, just like everybody you see in your primary care. But they just know that in order to get answers, sometimes they have to search around, and the system is not designed for that. So, like I said, it cost me money. I had to be, it just puts everything into perspective in our lives. Because that week after the ER, I had my busiest gig week for the rest of the season, and I had to cancel everything. So I knew that there was a bank account depletion going to happen. All of us are familiar with how horrible that feels, having to miss any gig, let alone, the most lucrative week of the rest of your season. And on top of that, I was spending all this money trying to figure out what was wrong. And at the same time, it just didn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No, because if you don't have, it's trite, but if you don't have your health,
what's going to happen? Yeah, what's going to happen?
What good is any money that you're bringing in?
Yeah. So it's a big thing to work through and to figure out. I am really sorry that we weren't able to finish out our season. That was a real regret. And I'm also I feel a little sad for missing out on the opportunity to have the kind of energy that I normally have for all of my creative projects, including our podcast. Mm-hmm. This was a hard year, and I've had hard years before, but this was particularly hard. And I want to say thank you to my work wife here for sticking it out and stepping in a lot of ways while I was kind of in this decline for so long. And I'm just really feeling hopeful and optimistic for our future as a podcast and for whatever's ahead for both of us.
We are all busy, especially those of us who teach music. We give everything to ensure our students' abilities and love of music are always growing and developing. We want to make sure each one has the right setup and instrument, but we barely have enough time to practice for ourselves sometimes.
That's where Potter Violins can come in. Their sales team and technicians are also players and experts on all string things. You can send your students to try instruments, get properly sized, have their current instruments adjusted, or to pick out a new bow or other string accessory. You can have total confidence that they'll be taken care of. Potters will even ship what your students need anywhere in the United States.
So take one thing off your plate and send your students over to Potter Violins, no matter what they need. And Potter Violins loves teachers so much, they want to offer you a 10% teacher's discount because you deserve it.
Visit their flagship location in Tacoma Park, Maryland, their rental location in Gaithersburg, Maryland, or shop online from anywhere at potterviolins.com.
We have big plans this summer to go to some conventions and learn some new things and get inspiration. So if all goes as planned, season 5 will be coming at you in the fall. Season 5.
I know, it's really cool. And it's like a good number, right? It's like fresh start.
Yes. It's an anniversary. What year anniversary? What anniversary?
Oh, are you going to look it up? Should we do something
I'm going to look it
with
up.
That? We should do something with that.
Yeah.
Isn't it like paper or something?
No, that's 1 year.
Okay, good. Oh, it's got to be better than paper then. Is it copper?
It is wood, I think.
How appropriate, as we're string players.
I think. Wait. Gifts by year. The Nath's going to tell me. The traditional one is wood. The modern one is silverware. And the gemstone is sapphire.
Ooh. I'm really excited for that. I also just am like so thankful to the people who listen. I just think it's so great.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
Thank you for sticking it out with us. And
every once in a while we meet you in the wild. And we're like, oh my God, somebody listens to
I don't know if I told you this, but just the other day, I was at a big party celebrating the retirement of podcast friend Molly Sharp. And a friend of ours, she said, oh my gosh, you know what's so funny is we've been spending all this time together and gigs, this and that. And I never put two and two together until the other day I was listening to an episode of your podcast and I was like, that voice sounds really familiar. I was like, oh, well, thanks for listening. That's great. You know, I'm still so proud of the conversations that we did have this year. It's so funny for me because it's like I was kind of in a fog from my normal present self. But when I think about it and when I listen back, I'm like, man, did we talk to some really cool people with some really great ideas and perspectives? And it's just always been such an inspiring thing in my life since we started it.
Yeah. So don't worry. We'll be back.
Yeah. Maybe we'll post updates of stuff we're doing over the summer just for fun. And
yeah. And there's a new feature you're going to see in the description, and it's called Text Us. And you can literally
I'm just learning about this for the first time.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't update you. It's a new feature from our podcast hosting company, Buzzsprout, I'll plug them all day. They're amazing.
You met. Do you want to tell this story real quick? I feel like, okay, I hope all of you who love us are bearing with this conversation. We are literally just, this is how we normally are.
So
sidebar. And then back to Texas.
I got this, we get this email newsletter from our podcast host, Buzzsprout. And they always tell you what's new in the podcasting world, what new features they're introducing, blah, 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 blah. And this one announced that there was going to be a meetup hosted by Buzzsprout in the DC area, which is where we are. And so I texted Liz and I was like, say you can go to this thing with me. We need to go because number one, it's our podcast host and I'm like a fangirl for their podcast. Anyway,
you are a fangirl of the
podcast. And I'm a fangirl. I don't know. I nerd out about that stuff.
I love it.
Anyway, number one, it was hosted by them, they're amazing. And number two, they were going to be giving out free passes to the convention, which is also happening here in DC in August, which Liz and I are going to. Anyway, so we show up. It's a very crowded room. It's very loud. And we're ordering drinks at the bar. And I hear this voice behind me. And I turn around and instantly I recognize Alban from the Buzzcast. Okay, this is deep cut for anybody who does not listen to podcasts.
Podcast fans will know what you're talking about.
Anyway, so I recognized this host by his voice and confirmed that it was him. And we had this conversation with him and he was so cool.
He was cool. He was really fun and it was exciting.
And he was interested.
Yeah, he was very interested.
He was really interested in what we were doing and just super cool. But anyway, that's a long way to say that we have this new feature that Buzzsprout has made available to us where you, listener, can text us using your phone any kind of message you want. We can't reply. But if you hear something that you're interested in, if you have a suggestion, you just want to say, hi, this is so-and-so listening from so-and-so. If you have ideas about future guests you'd love us to feature, anything, literally just say hi.
Yeah.
We won't know. It's anonymous unless you write your name.
Oh, yeah.
We don't even see who it is, or we can't reply back or anything. What if we
get a bunch of mean
we
ones?
Can sure shout you out on the next episode.
I would really love it if we just got a bunch of random highs and we didn't know who it was. It would make that would make me smile a lot, actually.
Send us a lot of highs. Anyway, that's just another way that you can engage with us. If you're on your phone and you're already listening to this, just send us a hi.
Yes.
Throw us a crumb.
Throw us a crumb. We appreciate you so much.
We really do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on in our world, in our classical music world right now, that we're kind of wrestling with how to address. So hopefully we're going to find some inspiration on the most productive way to get into that subject material. So look forward to that.
Both Stephanie and I feel it's very important that we don't gloss over or ignore major issues that particularly pertain to women and non-binary musicians in our field. So we're with you, and we're going to try to figure out how to best serve our community when those topics come up. I think that's really good. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, okay, maybe this is a good place to sort of wrap it up. I was just thinking about a conversation we had when we were discussing the Creative Success Now book in our book club with our friend Eileen. And in this particular meeting, we were talking about the goal setting, and it was like the wheel of various things. And you were supposed to sort of assign, okay, family's really important, friends are really important, career, whatever it was. And health was one of them. And at the time, this was probably like 3 months ago, like close to 3 months ago. I was very confused by this because I was like, these are all important to me and I don't know what to do. And Stephanie's like, well, I think it's temporary. I think you just pick
it's time sensitive.
Pick the thing now and then you reevaluate. And I was like, okay, well then I have to easily answer health because this was a problem for me at this point. My goal was to get stronger. And I wanted to ask you how you feel about yours. Do you remember?
I can't remember what I chose.
It was something along the lines of exploration goals.
Exploration goals.
Yes. So how do you feel like you're doing? Because this was before or right around the time you had planned your trip to California, right?
Yeah. So I have this goal this year of exploring different options for my future because I feel like, I don't know, the need to do something different and to explore my other strengths. So I decided to go to California to take this class to kind of pursue a possible skill that I have. And,
which is a brand new, it's like
I've never done this thing before.
It's so cool.
So, and it's totally not related to music. There was not another musician there at all. And eventually I will definitely be sharing about what I'm doing, but
it's too early for that.
Yeah, it's early in the process now, but let that be a teaser to you. But yeah, it's really been, perspective is something that we can all benefit from. And sometimes it comes in the form of stepping away from what you're really comfortable in and literally going somewhere else.
Yes.
And being like, oh man, all these people here are doing something completely unrelated. They have no idea who I am, what my issues are. I can still exist in that world.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but perspective and travel is a great way to do it. Summertime is a great time to do it because a lot of our seasons are a little more quiet during this time. But I would just encourage you to get some perspective. Us freelancers get bogged down in the mire of the day-to-day, the hustle, all of that comes attached to what we do for work, about who we identify as. You identify as a musician, but you are so much more than that. And this is just my reminder to make the most of your summer, step away, and just recognize that you are multifaceted.
Yep. Oh, perspective is the theme of the conversation here, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Because whether it's something that is forced upon you or it's a choice that you make to take a chance and go do something different and try something new and meet new people, it just shifts your world in a way that's, I imagine for the better. Certainly makes all those little problems feel a lot littler. I totally agree.
It's totally sows seeds of creativity. Experiencing new things is a great way to get unstuck.
I couldn't agree more. You know how I'm addicted to travel I am.
I know. Well, all that being said, we've missed you. We're going to say, see you soon.
Yep. We'll stay in touch.
Yes. Yeah.
And
text us.
Yeah, text us.
Have a good summer.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you loved this episode, consider writing us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Thanks also to our season sponsor, Potter Violins.
If you'd like to support the podcast and get access to bonus content, consider joining our Patreon community.
You can buy all your musician-centric merch, including shirts, water bottles, koozies, and a variety of other fun items.
Our theme music was written and produced by JP Wogeman and is performed by Steph and myself.
Our episodes are produced by Liz O'Hara and edited by Emily McMahon.
Thanks again for listening. Let's talk soon.